In this video, I'm going to cover the earnings momentum folder number 16 under, it's a subfolder of folder number 4, which is end of day and intraday stock scans. For those of you who are interested in prospecting for stocks having a earnings requirement, this is a good place to look. And you can make a group out of these stocks and then screen for VPA flags or whatever trigger you like to use. But let's just go ahead and get started. There are 6 of them in here. I may try to get them all in this video or split the videos. Not sure yet. Okay, quality, momentum, and fundamental scan. I'm going to bring the filter up on these. And what I'm looking for here is a net profit margin of 10%, return on equity of 10%, percent EPS change greater than 0 compared to the same quarter 1 year ago. Same goes for revenue. Percent off the 52-week low. I want these stocks to be up at least 50%. These are assigned to a group. So let's see what we come up with. This is the end of day screen. There are 140 securities. If I go to the intraday screen, there are 104 securities. So the advantage of this, as you know by now, is you can do your screening at night, and then you can see which ones are working the following day. This screen, as always, all of my intraday screens or scans, I use the end of day demand combo. I call it the demand intraday volume point of control 1010, and it drives the stocks which are most in demand to the top of the list. Now I'm just using a weekly and a daily chart now, and I am using one of my standard charts, the number 1 chart, because it has everything in it that I want. But you can see that Paycom software has been doing very well. And I also just am using these 2 charts because I want to get more fundamental information in here. So you can see that there is good earnings growth on this stock, good projected earnings, and so on. And that's why it is passing the screen. So this is the end of the day. Let's go to the intraday, and let's see what's on top here. StoneCo is a company. I think they reported today. No, I don't know what's going on with it, but it moved up. I really am not crazy about this chart, but the weekly chart looks very strong, and it is moving up pretty massively today, up by 19.71%. So as I mentioned early in the video, if you want to make a group of these stocks by using the alternate G key or make group from list, then you can scan against that. I'll bring the quick pick back up again, and I'm just going to move down to the next one. It's the same filter except a minimum volume requirement of 750,000 shares. So I'm not going to spend any time on this. You can see that the number of stocks went from 140 to 66, so it cuts it down a lot. And these stocks, of course, with a 750K requirement are going to be a pretty liquid stock. So let's just take a quick look at Garmin. You can see that Garmin's been doing very well weekly. Here's a nice consolidation area, a nice very accurate VPA flags here, and it started moving up, and it corrected down to the 50-day exponential moving average and then moved up from there. Here's a viable gap up after earnings. It's holding above the 3 and 6, and it continues to go down a little bit today, but the trend is definitely up. Why is this? Well, if I open this up, you can see that earnings growth has been good. 27% increase over the same quarter 1 year ago. The prior quarter is up 17.2 compared to the same quarter a year ago. Revenue growth has been strong. If this is correct, the next quarter earnings estimate is going to be down slightly, minus 1.96, but the trend is up. Stock is trading above all of my trend lines. I've had some pocket pivots and so on. So this is a good place to prospect for stocks if you are concerned about earnings, revenue, and EPS. Okay, the next one is EPS and revenue growth with rising earnings estimate for the current quarter. So I'll bring Target up. Target's been a great stock. Recently, they just had really good earnings. They're not in the database till Tuesday, but you can see the viable gap up. I believe that was on Wednesday, and it is continuing to go higher. And let's not use this one because the next quarter estimate or the current quarter estimate could be the estimate that's not in the database yet. How about WellCare Group? These earnings are in the database, 9/19, and this is what we're looking for here, the current quarter estimate. You can see the earnings growth has been good compared to the same two quarters a year ago. And here's the current quarter estimate, supposed to be up 33.74%, and then the following quarter after that is going to be down slightly, but this is the one I'm primarily interested in, or the one that is in the filter. This pulls up 581 stocks, which is a lot. Let's go to the intraday, and you can see that the stocks with the strongest momentum, highest range, and highest volume go to the top of the list. Now, this stock only trades 110,000 shares. So if you want in, you're going to have to pay up. Well, you can afford to pay that. It's a dollar stock. Weekly chart has been basing a long time, starting to move now. Negative earnings, it doesn't matter if they're negative as long as they're improving, and you can see that right up here. Now, I didn't bring this filter up. Let's just take a look at it quickly. Revenue has to be greater than the previous two quarters, greater than 0, and the EPS projection for the current quarter has to be greater than 0. Very simple filter, but it certainly finds the stocks that are projecting, or I should say projected to be improved on the current quarter estimate up here. -7, 84.44% increase. And what you would do is you would compare that to -45. So that is a huge increase in earnings for the current quarter. A lot of stocks, like I said, so I would make a group out of this and then use other screens to look for entries. Or you can just use this and flip through the charts of these stocks that are going up. Okay, so end of day, intraday, and this is the same thing, except I have a fan requirement in here. In other words, the moving averages have to be stacked. Let's go to the intraday version. Well, we already looked at Stone Company. Let's look at Copart. This is a good example. What the fan requires, for those of you who may not know, is that the 200 is here, the 100 is here, the 50 is here, the 18 is here, the 6 is here, and the 3 is here. These three, the 18, or these four, I'm sorry, the 18, the 50, the 100, and the 200 have to be stacked in the correct order. Look how beautiful this weekly chart is on here. And as I zoom out on this, let's go back in time and see where this fan began. And it happened clear back here when the stock was at $50, and the stock is currently at $90. What was it in here? $45. So right in here is when the weekly chart or the daily chart where the fan started coming into place here. Looks like it was around $52 or so on. So this is a screen. Still 324 stocks meet the requirements. Now the next one, or the next two, are quarterly earnings per share acceleration. I came up with this many years ago, and what I was looking for is a big jump in earnings acceleration. And we get 191 securities, and the filter is I'm looking for an EPS change from the most current quarter of greater than or equal to 100%, and the previous quarter has to be at least 50%. These are stocks that are assigned to groups. Here's a stock that I just got out of. We'll probably get back into it. I closed some positions down yesterday, and I should have just left this one open, but I didn't, so I can always get back in. You can see that the earnings acceleration, what I'm looking at are these two quarters. Remember, this one has to be at least 100%, and this one has to be at least 50%. So there is really strong earnings growth here, and this is what I consider earnings acceleration. Let's go to the intraday. Stoneco was in there. Let's look at Cubic. I'm not familiar with this. Well, something happened here. The earnings evidently came out, and they're not in the database yet, so I'll forget about that one. Let's look at Manitowoc. This is an old company. And you can see that it's been in a downtrend on the weekly chart, but the earnings growth meets the requirements of the filter. This has to be at least 50. This has to be at least 100%. And I don't know what's held the stock back. Maybe the lack of revenue. The revenue seems pretty stagnant the past, especially the last 2 quarters. But it is trending up now. And the bottoms in here, we had three higher highs on the weekly, which is good. And it's moving up. It's one to consider. Good day today on a very flat market day. Okay, that's that. Now, the last group is ERG 240 stocks. Now, ERG 240 stocks, this was Ian's thing. He came up with this: earnings, revenue, and group strength. And these stocks have to be balanced stocks. If you look down here, and by balanced I mean the 3 components of ERG have to total at least 240. And many times you're going to find stocks with, you will find stocks that either generally have good balance between EPS rank, relative strength rank, and group rank. They're not all consistently high, but generally they are. I'll leave it at that. There's Dorian again. Here's Kosan, which has been good recently. Look at nice weekly chart here. And here's the daily chart. Fan is in place. Copart. This only allows 62 securities through all securities, so that is a small group. If I go to intraday, you can see which ones moved today. Here's Manitowoc again. Here's Lulu. Let's look at Lulu. After this shakeout here, it reversed. Excellent VPA flags, and it has just continued to move up. So those are my earnings momentum stocks. Now, this one is not generally considered an earnings momentum stock, but I put these screens in here because the EPS rank is generally pretty high. Let me sort on this, and you can see it varies from 98, what's down to 64. But the other two components, the relative strength and the group rank, are high enough numbers that it boosts the ERG to over 240. So I just thought this was a good place to have these screens. A lot of people like to trade ERG 240 stocks, so the screen is in here for you.